What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode. It's been a minute since our last one, and the reason for that is because we've been putting ourselves out there and just getting in the groove and seeing how everyone's feeling in the environment. The first event we went to was Afterlife in Los Angeles, and when we were at this festival, there was nothing but a bunch of young kids smoking vaporizers and doing a bunch of drugs. I wanted to ask you, Kunal, what was your vibe of the environment at Afterlife?
It's a big jump off there. Just taking a moment to enjoy the sun as it sets here in Southern California. Afterlife was it was a great event. I'm grateful that we got the tickets to go. However, what I did notice in the demographic, it's a lot of vape use, like you said, a lot of young teens using vapes, smoking, and I'm not here to demonize any of that. I just think that at the level and the rate that we saw it, it was a bit intense.
So let's say you're working at your job, and the main thing you look forward to is, hey man, I can't wait to get off on Friday night and hit this festival and just hit my vape all night. Is there something wrong with their, like, looking at the lens through the scope of, I can't wait till Friday night hits so I can go to this rave and drink a bunch and hit my vape? Is there something lost there in translation of, like, living a purely happy lifestyle?
Well, it's hard to say, Cam. I feel like it's not to anyone's fault necessarily. I do think there are healthier choices we can make to live a more sustainably happy lifestyle that doesn't require waiting until the weekend so we can break loose and break free.
Guys, if you're waiting till Friday night and you're stoked on it, you're already part of the Matrix, because every day you wake up should feel like Saturday. So
I mean, yeah, ideally that's true, and life happens, and I think we're all conditioned to operate a certain way. We got a plane going by right now. Yeah, brother, I think there's a balance to be struck. I think the best thing we can do is expose ourselves to alternative ways to living our life so that we feel fulfilled on a daily basis, and we're not waiting till Friday night to scratch that itch.
And
let loose. Yeah.
the music was great, guys, and we had a great time. We were fist pumping, jumping up and down. It was just tough to see the crowd, people getting carried away because they had, I don't know, too much to drink, or they took too much substance abuse. I have no idea. But it's tough, and we were one of those kids back in the day.
There was a time, yeah, when it was like we were crushing beer cans or taking shots and ripping a vape or whatever was the scene, 10 years ago, 8 years ago now? Yeah.
And it seems to be that the common thought process when you're going through and living your life is, hey, let me get off on Friday and Saturday and let me have a drink. And this goes on, weekend after weekend after weekend after weekend. What do the people not know about the effects of drinking alcohol that often?
Yeah, it has an impact. It has a significant biological
But how
impact.
bad? On a scale of 0 to 100, how bad is the impact?
It's hard to rate it from 0 to 100, but I would say it's heavily impactful. It's far worse than I think we think it is, because socially it's so widely accepted. I'm just going to go have a drink after work, or I'm going to have a nightcap, or this weekend I went and had 3, 4, 5 drinks out with friends, and that's the norm. What we don't realize is that's taking a significant load on our liver, on our entire biology, on our neurotransmitters, our health, and it tends to cost us the next day or the day after.
And you got to ask yourself and think, like, if I feel like I have to drink in order to hang out with my friends and have a good time, are those really your true friends?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to demonize anything here or make anyone feel like it's wrong that you drink. There's an openness to that. Have a drink or two, enjoy your time with your friends, do it socially, but there is a certain level there. It's a gradient, and I think the Stoics said it best.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. Everything in moderation.
Moderation is the key. But would you say moderation is drinking every weekend? Is that moderating yourself?
In my own personal life, no. And I think context matters. We each have different relationships to different substances, our lifestyle, our routines, our schedule. Someone may not have the freedom, maybe they work 60 hours a week, and to them all they know is, when I get off work, this is how I know how to enjoy my time and unwind and relieve stress. So without making them feel guilty or bad, I think the benefit here, the opportunity, is to recognize that there are other ways to feel good, unwind, de-stress, and not have to pay the cost that often alcohol
Well, let's take a step back.
comes with.
Let's take a step back there. You mentioned someone working 60 hours a week, and when they get off work on that Friday, that's their way of de-stressing. maybe their work is too stressful, or maybe they're not fully engaged with what they're doing, that takes them to the point of, I'm taking a Friday night so I could de-stress, because apparently what I'm doing during the week isn't fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, that noted, I think for a lot of people, it's our society. It's a system we've inherited and adopted and we've been a part of, and less so that someone's willfully choosing. I don't think everyone is choosing to work 60 hours a week unless it's your passion project, you love it, you're an entrepreneur, and those 60 hours a week feel like joy. It's fulfilling. I think for many people working 2 jobs, like we met that girl the other day, working 2 jobs, she's probably just trying to make ends meet, because it's the cost of living here in San Diego isn't cheap, and fortunately or unfortunately, there aren't that many options to make a lot of money and have a lot of free time.
I just stumbled upon this story, this quote I read in a book, and it was funny. The guy was saying, he was talking to a doctor that dealt with patients on their deathbed, and the guy said, I never dealt with anyone that said they wish they spent more time in the office when they're on their deathbed.
And that's the truth.
and that takes me to my next question is, Kunal, if you think everyone's living a truly meaningful life, would they be living for that crazy rush on the weekend?
It's like I said earlier, Cam, I think it's that we don't know better.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a matter of like,
they don't have anything to compare it to.
Right. It's a form of ignorance. We haven't really had the chance to be exposed to anything different. And until that point, I think we do our best from where we're at with what we know. The
common objection I get when I say to someone like my friend or my cousin, like, hey, you shouldn't drink, then the next point is, well, how do I enjoy my time?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And there's maybe no reference point to say like, hey, I have this point of reference where I'm living this abundantly and fulfilled and happiness without drinks, without any substances, and I'm fully happy, versus the only thing I know to compare my life to is last weekend where I got plastered.
Right. And maybe a different approach is in order. Maybe instead of saying you shouldn't drink alcohol, you can try asking your cousin or your friend or your relative the question, do you feel like drinking alcohol really brings you satisfaction?
Yeah.
Is that satisfaction lasting? And maybe they're open to that depth of a conversation and introspection, and maybe they're not.
Yeah.
And you kind of got to let the cards fall where they do. But in that case, I would say, yeah, I would push the question a little further with curiosity, with genuine curiosity. Like, hey, do you actually feel like your life has benefited from drinking every weekend? And do you feel like it's bringing you sustainable, lasting happiness? And maybe the answer is yes. I'm not here to judge. For myself, I've discovered, and I think for you as well, Cameron, we've discovered that there's other ways to tap into happiness and gratitude and to feel joyful and have a good time on the weekends, but also throughout the week, to wake up and feel grateful and feel like, wow, man, I'm just glad to be alive and to have what we have.
Yeah, so then you go into the next problem, which is, we talk about this a lot, is health. But coming off of the last topic, where you don't know how bad the alcohol is for you, therefore you drink every weekend and you have a good time. Mm-hmm. You also don't know exactly the repercussions of what you put in your body. And from what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing on social media is, until you have a problem in your family, or someone's getting sick, someone gets cancer, and you have no option but to look into it, that's when you start raising the questions and start looking into it more seriously.
Yeah, I feel your passion behind this. And, I share it with you as well. I think it often seems to take, fortunately or unfortunately, again, I think it's unfortunate, it takes a rather drastic situation or something impactful to force us to stop, take a step back, and reevaluate our life choices. Myself included. I mean, when I was 18, you know the story, you were there. Yeah. It was a very, very shocking wake-up call. It was 11 years ago, and gratefully there was no real lasting damage or severity or trouble that came from it, but it was served to be a situation that was like, oh shit, I ought to make some different choices in my life.
So it's nothing that can change overnight, but I think it's for the people that have done the research and they have seen how it's affecting society and honestly destroying society. And someone might be listening there and saying, like, who's really getting destroyed? If you're sitting there saying that, you just might not have looked into the same information and seen the same statistics that other people have, and they're just trying to protect their fellow human beings.
Yeah, I mean, alcohol can be a substance that gets, I think we all know, we can all admit, it's a very widely abused substance, and it comes at a cost. And I think what's important there is to evaluate our relationship to it, how we're utilizing it, how we're enjoying it. Are we really enjoying it? And where's that line drawn from enjoyment to now dependency?
Look, we've said moderation a million times on this podcast. We're not anti-drinking, but when you take into consideration drinking compulsively, vaping compulsively, smoking compulsively, there is a cascade of things that we see, especially with the young generation, just taking that example from Afterlife, that it's just totally being abused.
Yeah, and I wish there was more available options for young people to say, like, oh, wow, I can enjoy myself without the use of all of these things. And I think we all have to go on that journey together, or on our own, rather. But I think the last thing I'll leave this topic with, the last question I'll leave is it worth it? And I think that's been the fundamental tool for me throughout my life, is just asking, is it worth it? Is this donut worth the 10 minutes of pleasure? And for me, it very quickly became realized that it wasn't. Whether it was through research, education, direct experience, it was like, maybe I'll have a small bite every now and again, but it's not worth it for me to eat McDonald's every day, or to use this vape, or to drink 4, 5, 6 drinks. The hangover, the way I feel the next day, knowing the cost it's taking on my body, it just wasn't worth it.
And that comes down to the food we're eating as well. It has a big impact on our wellness and our health. And if you're just getting started, maybe look at what the animals or the things you're consuming, what they're consuming, and that's going to make a drastic difference on how you feel. If you're going vegan or vegetarian and you're substituting meat for other things, what are those things being substituted with? Let's start with the meat example. If you're getting cows that are only fed GMO corn, do you think that's obvious? It's an obvious answer, but is that going to affect your health?
Absolutely. And it's like we've discussed before, and I love that you brought this point up. So if the cow was eating GMO corn, we're obtaining the nutrients from that cattle according to what they ate. And what our input largely determines our makeup, our biological makeup. And so if I'm eating a cow that's eating 100% corn, chances are I'm missing out on beneficial CLAs, just all the good fats, the stearic acids that the cattle would naturally produce eating a grass-fed diet.
And that cattle's probably sick. So if you're eating that every day...
I mean, imagine if we were eating corn every day. It's not something we should be eating. So I don't think we should be eating food that eats it.
Obviously, you guys all know this. Cows are meant to eat grass.
Ruminant animals.
Chickens are meant to eat what?
Grains, but also insects, worms, a plethora of things. And it's just not what's fed. Our modern agriculture is so wrapped up around profit.
So some people might take the perspective like, hey, these guys are just so paranoid. They're looking at everything that they eat. But
really, is it so hard? I mean, today we went and had 18 oysters.
Yeah.
They tasted fantastic. We feel great. Had beef liver earlier, had eggs. It's not that hard to do. And honestly, the beef liver is so affordable. It's so inexpensive. Yeah, there's a bit of a taste acquirement there. It took me a while to acquire a taste for liver, cooked liver and eating it, but the results speak for themselves.
The last note I want to end this little conversation we're having on is, I've been having conversations with people, and it seems like after they've watched like one documentary or they've seen one thing on Instagram, they completely changed their diet. I talked to someone that said, hey, I saw a video in my high school class on veganism, and after that day I haven't eaten meat for 10 years. Do you think that's obviously naive to do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, in my own personal life, I wouldn't make a decision off of one documentary. Also, I would explore and consider what the agenda or the motive is behind the people who are making the documentary. The directors.
We've all seen that Netflix documentary where they talk about, we're bringing on all these athletes and they're all vegan. You should be vegan too. Just basically based off watching that solely, turning vegan is a very ignorant move on your part.
I think it can be dangerous. That's what I'll say. I think it can be dangerous. I feel you getting heated on this topic, but yeah, it can be dangerous because you're putting your own health and your well-being at cost and at risk here, based on the basis of watching a single documentary from people who largely have their own agenda and may very well likely be misinformed themselves or rigging studies in a way that's not accurately presenting genuine data. And so that's the thing, is like, I would do your own research and find out for yourself. I've talked to many friends now who've been vegan they were vegan for 4, 5, 6 years and have switched to a meat-based diet or animal-based diet or a more well-rounded diet that includes animal products, and they feel exponentially better than they did when they were vegan.
And this is not bashing vegans. This is just saying, if you just solely became vegan based on one documentary, you're screwing up.
And I would say the same thing. If you decided to be a carnivore, to have a carnivore diet because you watched Paul Saladino's IG videos and you decided, you know what, I'm going full carnore. I mean, go for it.
You're making the same mistake.
You know, I don't know what our regulations are on our podcast, but fuck around and find out. And you're likely to find out.
You should watch documentaries on both sides, arguing both points, and then make an informative decision. Most people, you ask them, why are you vegetarian or why are you vegan? They don't even know. There's, I watched this documentary in high school and I had stopped eating whatever.
They think it's healthy. And it's like,
and they haven't actually looked at the data.
And then there's the argument of, well, it's good for the planet and it's considerate of animals' welfare. And largely it's not. If you dig a little deeper and do more research, I know this is controversial, but eating vegan actually isn't the best thing we can be doing for our planet. It's not. Having regenerative farming practices that are in tune with nature and in harmony with nature and follow the seasons is far better agriculturally and for our environment than eating 100% raw vegan diet.
What could you say about the vegan community and the processing having a higher carbon footprint than an animal diet?
I think you just got to be careful. Anytime there's any dogma, any kind of ism at all, just exercise your discernment and your logic and consider that there are alternative perspectives on things.
All right, guys, the sun's going down. The lighting here is going to cut out, so we're going to cut this conversation short. But we got some good heated topics for you guys, so we're going to leave you on that note. Thanks so much, my brother.
Yeah, brother. Vital is vital.